Mount Katahdin, the centerpiece of Baxter State Park and the northern terminus of the Appalachian Trail, is one of Maine's crown jewels. It's also a sacred place to the Wabanaki people.
And right here, Katahdinuk, where we are now, this area holds a lot of Atko we call them, the stories.
And now it is also ground zero for a groundbreaking partnership between Native leaders and conservationists who center Aboriginal knowledge and priorities in land conservation practices and aim resources at them.
When Indigenous people are at the forefront, the leadership, our governance is mobilized, that's actually producing the most profound conservation outcomes around the world.
Ranko sits on the Wabanaki Commission on Land and Stewardship that leads the new partnership with First Light, a conservation consortium that supports Native stewardship of land and resources.
Feels like it can be a really good example and set a great precedent for future land return projects to come, whether it's in Maine or across the nation.
The project's centerpiece is the purchase for $32 million and planned return to the Penobscot Nation of 31,000 acres near Katahdin. And it's not just any land, it's sacred land.
Land beneath us, we relate to it. Gigawusin, or Gigawusinana, as our mother.
It's a very big and very special place for the Penobscot.
It's a large amount of acreage for what are considered land return projects, but it cuts to the heart of what Penobscot Nation, Penobscot culture and community is about.
Land is very important for us to be able to practice traditional life ways and make sure that we're able to harvest sustenance species such as moose, deer, brook trout, other fish.
First Light represents a huge shift for the conservation community. They're able to do our collective work and not take from or want to take credit for it. It is extremely special. I have not seen anything like it nationally.
But nothing hatched overnight. In First Light's early days, in 2017, it ran into trust issues. Shannon Hill represents the Mi'kmaq Nation on the Wabanaki Commission.
We come from a place where we can't trust because things were taken away from us.
First Light in December helped Hills Nation reacquire 103 acres. At first, she was skeptical.
It was very hard for me 2 years ago when I started to grasp that this group sole purpose is to raise money and buy land and give it back to us. So I was like, well, what are the strings? It's like, there's got to be something else. What's the bottom line here? You just don't give away stuff like that, and especially to us. Nobody ever gives us stuff anymore. And it's usually the opposite way.
But the two sides have grown together into a sturdy alliance.
First Light has been incredible. They bridged the conservation and the private funders with the Wabanaki people in a way so that we could both slowly trust each other.
And maybe pave the way for others.
I absolutely think this can spread.
This is going to be a game changer in our history.
A big part of what we see with First Light work is that it can expand, not as a recipe for how this can be done elsewhere, but for an example that shows there are ways wherever you are where the conservation community, the indigenous communities that are there can share common interests and common goals and work together to something that is really creating prosperity and a better future for all the community.
The amazing things that we're doing here, I think, can be an example and can be a template for this kind of work throughout the country, throughout North America, and maybe even worldwide.
For ICT from Wabanaki Homelands, I'm Stuart Huntington.